The sky above New Busan burned orange and red. Governor Park Yuna stood at the window of her office, watching the lights fall from heaven. They were not stars. They were plasma bombs. And each one meant death. The colony had existed for 40 years. 3 million humans called it home. They had built farms beneath great glass domes. They had raised children and planted gardens and dreamed of a peaceful future far from the crowded cities of Earth. New Busan was meant to be a new beginning. Now it was ending. "Governor, we have confirmed the identity of the attackers," said her assistant, a young man named Kang Tae-ho. His hands shook as he held his datapad. "They are Velith. A full war fleet. 40 ships in orbit." Yuna closed her eyes. The Velith hegemony. She knew of them. Every human did. They were slavers, conquerors, and destroyers of worlds. They believed that other species existed only to serve them. Humans were considered especially valuable slaves because of their endurance and adaptability. "How many warships do we have?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "None, Governor. New Busan is a civilian colony. We have farming equipment, research stations, schools." Taeho's voice cracked. "We have children." An explosion shook the building. Through the window, Yuna saw one of the agricultural domes collapse in flames. Families had lived there, generations of farmers who wanted nothing more than to grow food and live in peace. Her communication console lit up with an incoming transmission. She pressed the button to accept it. A face appeared on the screen. It was not human. The Velith had gray skin stretched tight over angular bones. Their eyes were black and empty, like holes in space. This one wore golden armor decorated with symbols of rank. "I am High Warden Thesic of the Velith hegemony," the alien said. His voice was cold and flat. "You are humans. Your colony now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately. All healthy adults will be taken for labor service. Children will be processed for training. Anyone who resists will be eliminated." Yuna felt fear. She felt anger. But most of all, she felt helpless. "We are a peaceful colony," she said. "We have no weapons. We cannot fight you. I beg you to show mercy." Thesic made a sound that might have been laughter. "Mercy is for equals. You are not our equals. You are cattle. You exist to serve us." He leaned closer to the camera. "You have 1 hour to gather your population in the central plaza. Anyone not present will be hunted and killed." The screen went dark. Taeho was crying now. "What do we do? Governor, what do we do?" Yuna walked to a locked cabinet in the corner of her office. She had never opened it before. Every colonial governor received one, sealed with security codes that only they knew. Inside was a device she had hoped would never be necessary. The emergency beacon. It was small, no larger than her hand. A simple black box with a single red button. The instructions were clear. Press only in the event of total catastrophe. Press only when all hope is lost. Press only when you are willing to accept whatever comes next. She pressed the button. The device hummed. A small green light appeared, confirming transmission. "What is that?" Taeho asked. "A call for help," Yuna said. "A call to Earth. But Earth is so far away. Even at the fastest speed, military ships would take weeks to reach us. We will be dead or enslaved long before then." Yuna shook her head. "This beacon does not call the regular military Taeho. It calls something else. Something older. Something that most people do not believe exists." She thought of the stories she had heard as a child. Tales of monsters who wore human faces. Warriors who were more beast than man. The galaxy's whispered nightmare. "What does it call?" Taeho asked. "Pray you never have to meet them," Yuna said. "But pray also that they come in time." Outside, the Velith dropships began their descent. Hundreds of them fell from the warships above, carrying soldiers and slave catchers, and all the terrible tools of conquest. The people of New Busan watched them come with terror in their hearts. The next few hours were the worst of Yuna's life. She organized the evacuation of wounded to underground shelters. She held crying mothers who had lost their children in the bombing. She stood beside her people as Veleth soldiers marched through the streets, grabbing humans with rough hands and forcing them into lines. One soldier grabbed a young girl who could not have been more than 12 years old. Her mother screamed and tried to hold on to her daughter. The soldier shot the mother without hesitation. The girl watched her mother fall, too shocked to cry. Yuna felt something break inside her. Not hope, exactly. She still had hope, but something else. Some belief in the fairness of the universe died in that moment. The Veleth herded them into the central plaza as commanded. Thousands of humans stood under the burning sky, surrounded by armed aliens who looked at them the way farmers look at livestock. High Warden Thesic arrived in a personal transport, stepping down onto the ground with the pride of a king surveying his property. "Excellent," he said, walking among the prisoners. "Strong specimens. The breeding facilities will be pleased." He stopped in front of Yuna. "You are the leader?" "I am the governor," she said. "Not anymore." He smiled with too many teeth. "You are now Slave 7-4, 3 of the New Busan Processing Center. Your old name no longer matters." Yuna said nothing. She simply stared at him with eyes full of cold hatred. Thesic seemed amused by this. "I enjoy the defiant ones. They are more satisfying to break." He turned to his officers. "Begin loading them onto the transport ships. We leave for hegemony space within the day." As soldiers pushed Yuna toward awaiting transport, she looked up at the sky one last time. The beacon had been sent hours ago. Was anyone listening? Would anyone come? Somewhere in the universe, across distances too vast for the human mind to truly understand, a signal arrived at its destination. It was received by machines that had been waiting for decades. Lights flickered in chambers that had been dark for generations. Cryogenic pods began their warming sequences. Something was waking up. On New Busan, Yuna was pushed into a cold metal cell. The door closed behind her, with a final sound. But far away, other doors were opening. The Terran beasts were rising from their sleep. And they were hungry. Deep beneath the frozen mountains of northern Terra, a facility existed that no official map showed. It had been built 200 years ago, in the darkest days of humanity's history. The tunnels ran for kilometers through solid rock, protected by shields that could survive nuclear strikes and weapons that could destroy small moons. This was the den, home of the Terran Intervention Force, the place where humanity kept its monsters. Lieutenant Commander Kim Do-hoon woke to the sound of alarms. The cryopod opened around him, releasing clouds of freezing mist. His body hurt. Every muscle screamed as blood began flowing again through veins that had been still for years. His lungs burned with each breath of recycled air. But he was alive, and that meant someone needed killing. Do-hoon forced himself to stand. Around him, other pods were opening. Men and women climbed out, their bodies shaking but their eyes already sharp. They had all done this before. They had all learned to push through the pain of revival, because pain was simply part of being what they were. "Report," Do-hoon said. His voice was rough from years of disuse. A technician appeared at his side, holding a datapad. She was young, probably born after the last time Do-hoon had been awake. She looked at him with a mixture of fear and respect. "Emergency beacon, sir. Colony designation New Busan. Veleth hegemony assault. 3 million civilians at risk." Do-hoon took the datapad and read the details. His enhanced eyes could process information faster than any normal human. Within seconds, he understood the situation completely. "Where is Captain Lee?" "Medical bay, sir. She woke 20 minutes before you. She is overseeing the full revival." Do-hoon walked through the facility with long strides. Other soldiers joined him as he passed, falling into step behind their commander. They moved in silence, their bare feet making no sound on the metal floors. Even groggy from cryo-sleep, they moved like predators. The medical bay was full of activity. 200 soldiers in various stages of revival. Doctors checking vital signs and injecting stimulants. And in the center of it all, Captain Lee Mina. She was tall for a woman, with short black hair and a face that might have been beautiful if not for the scars. Her left eye had been replaced with a cybernetic implant that glowed faintly red. She had lost the original in battle against the Krix Collective 15 years ago. Or was it 20? Time became strange when you spent decades frozen between wars. "Do-hun," she said, acknowledging him with a nod. "You have read the report? Velith. Slavers. They have taken one of our colonies." "Correct." Mina turned to address the room. Her voice was not loud, but something about it made everyone stop and listen. It was the voice of someone who had commanded death for over a century. Listen carefully. The Velith hegemony has attacked New Busan colony. 3 million humans are being processed for slavery. The regular military cannot respond in time. That is why we exist. The Velith hegemony, win time. She paused, letting her words settle. The galaxy has forgotten what humans are capable of. They see our colonies and think we are soft. They see our peaceful settlements and think we are weak. They look at our children and see only future slaves. Her cybernetic eye brightened. We will remind them of their error. The soldiers responded not with cheers, but with something more dangerous. Silence. The silence of hunters, preparing for the chase. Within 3 hours, the Terran intervention force was fully operational. Soldiers moved through armory chambers, collecting their equipment. The weapons were unlike anything used by regular military forces. Plasma rifles that could burn through starship armor. Monomolecular blades that could cut through any material at the molecular level. And the armor, black and heavy, and covered with systems that could predict enemy attacks before they happened. But the weapons were not what made the Terran beasts truly terrifying. The weapons were just tools. In a separate section of the facility, massive doors opened to reveal another set of chambers. These held the bonded creatures, the war beasts that had been genetically engineered to fight alongside their human partners. Do-hun approached his own creature's containment unit. The beast inside was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall when standing on its hind legs. It resembled a bear, but no natural bear had ever been this large or this deadly. Its fur was dark brown, almost black, and its claws could tear through steel like paper. "Thunder," Do-hun said softly. The beast's eyes opened, yellow and intelligent and filled with recognition. The bond between them had been forged through years of combat and shared blood. They were not master and pet. They were partners, brothers in war. The glass slid away. Thunder stepped out and stood beside Do-hun, a mountain of muscle and killing instinct that somehow moved with perfect grace. Throughout the facility, similar reunions were taking place. Sergeant Cho Sun-hee embraced Ghost, her wolf beast, a creature of white fur and silent feet. Corporal Baek Junho greeted Fang, a reptilian nightmare with scales that could deflect bullets. Lieutenant Han Yuri called down her hawk creature, a bird with a wingspan of 4 meters and eyes that could see individual heartbeats from kilometers away. The assault carrier Iron Dawn waited in its underground hangar. It was not a beautiful ship. Beauty had never been the point. It was a weapon designed for one purpose: to deliver the Terran beasts to their targets and support them until the killing was done. Captain Lee Mina stood at the bridge as the ship began its launch sequence. The mountain above them split open, revealing the night sky of Terra. Stars glittered, cold and distant. "Set course for New Busan," she ordered. "Maximum speed." The pilot nodded. "At maximum. We will arrive in 3 days. The Velith have had 3 million humans at their mercy for hours already," Mina said. Her voice was flat, but something dangerous moved behind her words. "Every minute we delay, More of our people suffer. Push the engines. Harder. The Iron Dawn rose into the sky, accelerating beyond what should have been possible. Within moments, it had left Terra's atmosphere. Within an hour, it had entered hyperspace, tearing through the fabric of reality on its way to war. In her quarters, Mina reviewed the tactical data again. 40 Velith warships, thousands of soldiers, against 200 Terran beasts. The Velith would think the odds were in their favor. The Velith would be wrong. Mina touched the scar beneath her cybernetic eye. She remembered the war that had given her that wound. She remembered friends who had died. She remembered the taste of alien blood. She smiled in the darkness. It was not a kind smile. They called us beasts, she whispered to herself. Let us show them what beasts do. The Iron Dawn moved through hyperspace like a bullet through water. Reality bent around it. Stars stretching into lines of light that seemed to go on forever. Inside the ship, the Terran beasts prepared for war. Sergeant Chosunhi sat in the armory, checking her equipment for the 100th time. Her rifle was clean. Her blade was sharp. Her armor systems showed green across all diagnostics. Everything was perfect, but her hands still shook. Ghost pressed against her leg, sensing her unease. The great white wolf looked up at her with eyes that held too much intelligence for any natural animal. Sunhee ran her fingers through his thick fur, feeling the warmth of his body and the steady rhythm of his breathing. I am fine, she told him. Just remembering. She always remembered before a mission. It was like her brain wanted to remind her of everything she had survived. Perhaps as proof that she could survive what was coming next. Sunhee had been born in the underground cities of Old Seoul. Not the bright towers where rich people lived, but the deep tunnels where the forgotten gathered. She had never known her parents. Her first memory was of stealing food from a vendor and running through dark corridors with angry voices chasing her. She had been 8 years old when the recruiters found her. They were looking for a specific type of child. Not the strongest or the smartest, but the ones with something harder to define. The survivors. The fighters. The ones who would do anything to keep breathing. Sunhee had fought 3 boys twice her size to steal a piece of bread. She had won. The recruiters had watched the whole thing. You have something special, they had told her. Would you like to become something more? She had said yes because yes meant food and shelter and the chance to be powerful instead of powerless. She had not understood what she was agreeing to. The enhancement process had nearly killed her. They had rebuilt her body at the cellular level, strengthening her bones, increasing her muscle density, rewiring her nervous system for faster reflexes. The pain had been beyond description. She had screamed until her voice broke, then screamed silently in her mind. 30 children had begun the process with her. Only 7 had survived. After that came the training. Years of combat instruction, tactical education, and psychological conditioning. They learned to kill with every part of their bodies. They learned to think like predators, to see weakness in every enemy and exploit it without mercy. They learned to suppress fear, doubt, and compassion when necessary. And then came the bonding. Ghost had been created in a laboratory, grown from genetic material that had been modified and enhanced just like Sunhee's own body. When they first met, Sunhee had been 18 years old. Ghost had been the size of a normal wolf pup. They had grown together, fought together, killed together. The bond between them was not just emotional. It was neurological. Sunhee could feel Ghost's heartbeat in the back of her mind, could sense his mood and location without seeing him. When one of them was hurt, the other felt echo of the pain. They had become a single weapon split across 2 bodies. Lieutenant Han Yuri entered the armory, her hawk creature perched on her armored shoulder. Yuri was one of the oldest members of the unit, though she looked no older than 30. The enhancement slowed aging considerably. Some of the Terran beasts had been fighting for over a century. Nervous? Yuri asked. Always, Sunhee admitted. I have learned not to trust soldiers who feel nothing before battle. Yuri nodded. Wise. Feeling nothing means you have forgotten what we fight for. What do we fight for? Sunhee asked. It was a question she asked herself often. Yuri was quiet for a moment. Her hawk ruffled its massive wings, sensing its partner's thoughtfulness. I used to think we fought because we were ordered to, Yuri said finally. We were weapons, and weapons do not ask questions. But I have lived long enough to see the truth. She looked at Sunhee with eyes that held centuries of experience. We fight because someone must. The galaxy is full of creatures like the Velith, species who see other beings as resources to exploit. If no one stops them, they will spread like disease, until nothing is left but masters and slaves. But why us? Sunhee asked. Why did we become this? Because humans understand suffering, Yuri said. We have inflicted it, and we have experienced it. We know what it means to be helpless, to be conquered, to be treated as less than nothing. And we decided that we would never let it happen again. Not to us, and not to others. She put her hand on Sunhee's shoulder. We are monsters, Sunhee. That is true. But we are monsters with a purpose. We are the nightmare that protects the dream. The ship shuddered slightly as it dropped out of hyperspace. Captain Lee Mina's voice came over the communication system. All personnel, prepare for combat drop. We have arrived at New Busan. Sunhee stood, her equipment secure. Ghost rose beside her, his body tense with anticipation. Around them, other soldiers were moving to their positions, their war beasts following like shadows. In the viewing ports, the planet appeared. It was beautiful, blue and green and wrapped in white clouds. From space, you could not see the burning cities, or the slave transports, or the millions of humans waiting in fear. But Sunhee knew they were there, and soon, the Velith would learn what it meant to anger the Terran beasts. She checked her rifle one final time. Her hands no longer shook. For the colonists, she whispered. Ghost growled in agreement. The drop pod bay doors opened, revealing the darkness of space and the distant glow of the Velith fleet. Sunhee climbed into her pod, Ghost pressing close beside her. The metal shell closed around them like a coffin. But this was not an ending. This was a beginning. On the planet below, 3 million humans were praying for a miracle. Their prayers were about to be answered. The Velith sensor officer was bored. He had been staring at his screens for hours, watching nothing happen. The conquest of New Busan was proceeding perfectly. The humans were cooperating like the good cattle they were. Soon the fleet would return to hegemony space with millions of new slaves, and the sensor officer would receive his share of the profits. Then his screen flickered. A single contact had appeared at the edge of the system. The sensor officer frowned and ran a diagnostic. Perhaps the equipment was malfunctioning. But no, the contact was real. One ship, approaching at high speed. He reported the contact to his superior, who reported it to the bridge, who reported it to High Warden Thesic himself. Thesic was in his private quarters, enjoying a meal prepared by newly captured human slaves. He did not appreciate the interruption. "One ship?" he said, not bothering to hide his annoyance. "It is approaching very quickly, High Warden, and its design does not match any known human military vessel." Thesic sighed and walked to the bridge. He looked at the tactical display, which showed his mighty fleet of 40 warships surrounding the planet. The single human vessel was barely visible, a tiny dot against the vastness of space. "Terran vessels always think they can challenge us," Thesic said. "They never learn. Hail them. I wish to hear them beg before they die." The communication officer established the connection. A moment later, a human face appeared on the main screen. It was a woman. She had short black hair and a face marked by scars. One of her eyes glowed red, clearly artificial. Behind her, Thesic could see a bridge filled with other humans, all of them watching him with expressions that showed no fear. "I am High Warden Thesic of the Velith hegemony," he announced. "You are in violation of sovereign Velith space. Surrender immediately, and you may be permitted to live as slaves." The woman smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "This is Captain Lee Mina of Terran Intervention Force Designation Omega-7, she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "You have committed acts of war against Terran citizens. You have 30 standard minutes to release all prisoners and withdraw from this system." Thesic stared at her. Then he laughed. His bridge crew laughed with him. "One ship threatens 40, he said. "Humans truly are as stupid as they are weak. Your courage is amusing, but meaningless. You will be destroyed, and your remains will be scattered across this system as a warning to others." 29 minutes, Limina said. Her smile did not change. Thesic cut the connection. "All ships, target that vessel. Destroy it." 40 warships turned their weapons toward the single approaching contact. Plasma cannons charged. Missile bays opened. Enough firepower to crack a small moon prepared to fire on one ship. The first volley filled space with light. Hundreds of plasma bolts and missiles streaked toward the human vessel. The sensor officer watched his screen, waiting to see the satisfying explosion of another enemy destroyed. The explosion did not come. "Hi, Warden," the sensor officer said, his voice suddenly uncertain. "The target vessel is still approaching. Our weapons struck it, but it appears undamaged." Thesic moved to look at the tactical display. The human ship was indeed still coming. It had flown directly through firepower that should have vaporized any known vessel, and it had not even slowed down. "Impossible," he said. "Increase fire. All ships. Concentrate everything on that target." The second volley was even larger than the first, and then the third, and the fourth. The Velith fleet poured destruction at the approaching ship with everything they had. The ship kept coming. Now Thesic could see it clearly on the optical sensors. It was ugly, a blocky vessel, without any of the elegant curves that Velith architects preferred. Its hull was scarred and pitted from absorbing their attacks, but it remained intact. "What is that thing made of?" someone whispered. The human ship was now inside their formation. It had flown directly into the heart of the Velith fleet, surrounded by enemies on all sides. This should have been suicide. Instead, it felt like a trap. The ship's sides opened. Thesic watched in confusion as hundreds of small objects ejected from the human vessel. They were shaped like metal eggs, falling toward the planet below. Drop pods. "They are launching landing craft," his tactical officer reported. 200 contacts, descending toward the surface. "Shoot them down," Thesic ordered. But the drop pods were small and fast and scattered across a wide area. The Velith gunners tried to track them, but for every one they destroyed, 5 more reached the atmosphere. And then, the human ship began firing back. Its weapons were unlike anything Thesic had ever seen. Beams of light that cut through Velith shields as if they were not there. Missiles that seemed to know where his ships would move before they moved. One by one, Velith warships began to explode. "Return fire," Thesic screamed. "All ships, concentrate on that vessel." But the human ship was moving now, twisting between his warships with impossible agility. Every time his gunners got a clear shot, it was somewhere else. Every time one of his ships tried to gain distance, it was already there, cutting it apart with surgical precision. In 15 minutes, half his fleet was gone. Thesic felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. True fear. The kind that made his hands shake and his thoughts scatter. "What are they?" he asked no one in particular. On the planet below, the drop pods were landing, and on the bridge of the Iron Dawn, Captain Lee Mina watched the Velith fleet burn. "All units have reached the surface," her tactical officer reported. Mina nodded. "Continue disabling their ships. I want their communications jammed and their weapons destroyed. They do not leave this system until we decide they can leave." She touched the controls to connect with her ground forces. "All units, this is Captain Lee. You have authorization to engage. Show no mercy to anyone holding a weapon. Protect the civilians at all costs." 200 acknowledgements came back. 200 Terran beasts and their war creatures scattered across the surface of New Busan, beginning their hunt. Mina settled back in her command chair. The battle in space was almost over. The real war was just beginning. Below, in the ruins of New Busan, the Velith soldiers heard the first screams. They did not know yet that the screams were not coming from humans, but they would learn soon enough. Corporal Baek Junho hit the ground running. His drop pod had crashed through the roof of a Velith garrison, and he was surrounded by enemies before his feet touched the floor. The aliens were fast. They raised their weapons and fired within a second of his arrival. Plasma bolts filled the air, enough to kill any normal human several times over. Junho was not a normal human. His armor absorbed the first volley. The energy dispersed across its surface, turning the black metal white hot, but leaving him unharmed inside. He was already moving, his enhanced muscles launching him forward faster than any natural creature could follow. His blade came out. It was a simple weapon in appearance, just a long piece of metal with a handle, but the edge vibrated at frequencies that could separate atoms. Nothing could stop it. The first Velith soldier died before he knew Junho was there. The blade passed through his chest, leaving a wound so clean that the alien looked down in confusion before falling. The second soldier tried to run. Junho caught him in 3 steps and removed his head with a single strike. Then Fang arrived. The containment shell of the drop pod burst open, and the reptilian warbeast exploded into the room. Fang was 4 meters long from nose to tail, with scales the color of dried blood and teeth designed to crush bone. He moved like liquid death, flowing between enemies and leaving corpses in his wake. The Velith garrison had held 50 soldiers. 30 seconds later, it held only bodies. Junho stood in the center of the carnage, his breathing steady and controlled. Around him, Velith blood painted the walls in patterns of violence. He felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not horror. The ability to feel those things during combat had been trained out of him long ago. He touched his communication device. Corporal Baek reporting. Garrison. 7. Eliminated. Moving to secondary objectives. All across New Busan, similar reports were coming in. Sergeant Cho Soon-hee moved through the darkness like a ghost. Her white wolf ghost was ahead of her, his enhanced senses picking up enemies before they knew they were being hunted. She had been assigned to the slave transport ships. The Velith had already loaded thousands of humans into their vessels, preparing to take them away forever. Sun-hee's job was to stop them. The first guard never saw her. He was standing at his post, looking out at the night, thinking about his share of the slave profits. Then, a blade entered his back, and he was thinking nothing at all. Soon he lowered the body quietly and moved on. Ghost padded beside her, his massive paws making no sound on the metal floor. The second guard heard something. He turned, raising his weapon, and found himself looking into yellow eyes that glowed in the darkness. Ghost hit him before he could scream. 100 kilograms of muscle and killing instinct driving him to the ground. Teeth closed around his throat. Then, there was silence. Inside the transport, the human prisoners heard the sounds of fighting. They huddled together in their cells, not daring to hope. Then the cell doors opened. Soon-hee stood in the corridor, covered in alien blood. Behind her, Ghost sat on his haunches, licking his muzzle, clean. She looked at the terrified humans, and for a moment, something soft entered her eyes. "I am Sergeant Cho Soon-hee of the Terran Intervention Force," she said. "You are being rescued. Follow me and stay quiet. We are getting you out of here. Done. 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 Done." A woman in the front of the group was crying. "They said no one would come. They said no one cared about us." Soon-hee walked to her and took her hands. They were the hands of a farmer, rough and strong, hands that had built a life on this colony, now shaking with trauma and fear. "We heard you," Sunni said. "We came, and we are not leaving until every one of you is safe." In another part of the colony, Lieutenant Han Yuri flew through the air on artificial wings. Her hawk creature soared above her, its enhanced eyes scanning the battlefield below. The Velith had established a command post in the central plaza, the same plaza where they had first gathered the colonists for processing. Hundreds of soldiers defended it, along with anti-aircraft weapons and shield generators. Yuri smiled. She dove. The Velith tracked her with their weapons. But she was too fast. She twisted and rolled through the air, avoiding plasma bolts that could have destroyed a shuttle. Her hawk dove with her, the two of them moving in perfect synchronization. She hit the ground in the middle of the command post, her impact creating a crater in the concrete. Before the dust had settled, she was moving, her blade a blur of death in her hands. The hawk came down behind her, its talons longer than human fingers and sharper than any knife. It struck like lightning, tearing through soldiers who had not yet understood what was happening. Yuri and her beast cleared the command post in 4 minutes. The shield generator exploded, leaving the area open to the sky. The anti-aircraft weapons fell silent. "Command post eliminated," Yuri reported. Continuing to secondary targets. In his holding cell aboard the crippled flagship, High Warden Thesic listened to the reports of disaster. Every minute brought news of another garrison destroyed, another transport liberated, another unit of soldiers eliminated. His mighty army was being torn apart by 200 enemies. "What are these creatures?" he screamed at his tactical officer. "How are they doing this?" The officer had no answer. He was watching footage from a security camera that showed a massive bear creature tearing through a reinforced door while its human partner cut down everyone inside. The human moved with speed and precision that seemed impossible. The bear moved with hunger that seemed endless. "They are not humans," the officer said quietly. "I do not know what they are." Below, in a cell meant for human slaves, Governor Park Yuna heard the sounds of fighting coming closer. She had given up hope days ago. She had watched her people suffer and could do nothing. She had accepted that her life was over. Now she heard screaming in the corridor. Velith, screaming. The door to her cell exploded inward. Standing in the opening was the largest human she had ever seen. He was covered in black armor splashed with blood. His face was calm, almost peaceful. Behind him, an enormous bear creature growled softly. "Governor Park," the human said. His voice was gentle, surprising in such a terrifying figure. "I am Lieutenant Commander Kim Do-hoon, Terran Intervention Force." He extended his hand to help her up. "We received your distress call. Sorry we took so long." Yuna took his hand. It was warm and steady and impossibly strong. "You came," she whispered. Do-hoon smiled. It was the smile of a protector, of a guardian, of something that destroyed monsters to keep innocents safe. "We always come," he said. "That is what we are for." The flagship of the Velith fleet drifted in the darkness of space. Its engines were destroyed. Its weapons were silent. Its shields had failed hours ago. The mighty vessel that had led the conquest of New Busan was now nothing more than a metal coffin waiting to die. High Warden Thesic sat in his command center, surrounded by his elite guards. They were the best soldiers in his fleet, veterans of 100 campaigns, killers who had never known defeat. Each one was armed with the finest weapons the hegemony could provide. None of them believed they would survive the next hour. The sounds of fighting had been moving through the ship for 30 minutes. It had started at the breach point, where a Terran shuttle had cut through the hull. Since then, the noise had been getting closer. Screams of dying soldiers, the roar of something inhuman, the wet sound of bodies being torn apart. Then, silence. Thesic stared at the sealed door of his command center. It was reinforced with the strongest materials his engineers could design. It could withstand explosions that would crack starship armor. The door began to bend inward. Something was pushing against it from the other side. Not cutting, not burning, just pushing. Thesic could see the metal stretching like cloth, groaning under pressure that should have been impossible. Then it tore. A beast came through first. It was a creature of black fur and yellow eyes, built like a massive cat, but larger than any natural predator. Its body was covered in blood, and its mouth was open to reveal teeth that gleamed in the emergency lighting. The elite guards opened fire. Plasma bolts struck the creature's hide. They did nothing. The beast kept coming, ignoring wounds that would have killed any normal animal. Then the human came through behind it. Captain Lee Mina walked into the command center with the calm confidence of someone entering their own home. Her armor was splashed with alien blood. Her blade hung at her side, its edge still humming with deadly energy. Her cybernetic eye glowed bright red, scanning the room and identifying threats. The elite guards turned their weapons on her. She moved. To Thesic, it was like watching a dance performed at impossible speed. Mina flowed between the guards, like water between rocks. Her blade flickered out. Once, twice, 3 times. Bodies fell. Her beast, Shade, moved beside her. The two of them worked together with perfect coordination, each covering the other's blind spots, each supporting the other's attacks. They were not 2 fighters working together. They were a single weapon with 2 forms. The elite guards, the finest soldiers in the Velith fleet, lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, Mina stood before Thesic. Her breathing was steady, unhurried. She showed no signs of exhaustion, despite having fought her way through hundreds of enemies to reach this room. Thesic had 1 weapon left. A plasma pistol, hidden in his chair. He drew it with desperate speed and fired directly at her face. Shade was faster. The beast caught the plasma bolt in its mouth and swallowed it. Then it growled, smoke rising from between its teeth. Mina did not even flinch. She simply watched Thesic with eyes that held no anger, no hatred, no emotion at all. They were the eyes of a predator, looking at prey. "High Warden Thesic," she said. "You are defeated. Your fleet is destroyed. Your soldiers are dead. Your slaves have been freed." Thesic felt his courage crumble. All his pride, all his belief in Velith superiority, dissolved like morning frost under a burning sun. "What are you?" he whispered. Mina did not answer immediately. She walked toward him slowly, her boots leaving bloody footprints on the polished floor. Shade followed, its massive body radiating heat and the smell of death. "You came to our colony to enslave our people," Mina said. "You killed mothers in front of their children. You treated humans like cattle. You believed we were weak." She stopped directly in front of him. He could see every scar on her face, every line earned through centuries of combat. Her cybernetic eyes zoomed and focused, studying him like a specimen under examination. "We are the Terran Intervention Force. We are what humanity created when we learned that the galaxy wanted to destroy us. We are the nightmare that guards the dream." She raised her blade and placed its edge against his throat. The vibration was so intense that it drew blood without pressing down. "By any measure of justice, you deserve death." Thesic closed his eyes, waiting for the end. The blade withdrew. He opened his eyes in shock. Mina was putting her weapon away. "You will live," she said. "You will return to the Velith hegemony, and you will tell them what happened here. And. You will tell them what happened here." Thesic could not understand. "You would show mercy? After everything I have done?" Mina's expression did not change, but something in her eye flickered. Not warmth, exactly. Something colder and more calculating. "This is not mercy," she said. "This is a message." She leaned close, so close that he could feel her breath on his face. "Tell your masters that humans begged for mercy, and the Terran beasts answered. Tell them that every world, every colony, every ship bearing the Terran flag is under our protection. Tell them that the next time a Velith warship crosses into human space with hostile intent, we will not stop at one fleet. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Tell them we will come for everyone. Every colony, every station, every ship. We will not stop until the Velith hegemony is a memory and a warning to others. We will make your species regret the day they first looked at a human and saw prey. She stepped back. You have one functioning shuttle in your landing bay. Take it. Leave. Deliver this message. Thesic rose on shaking legs. He looked at the bodies of his elite guards, the destruction around him, and the monster who had caused it all. He had no words left. He walked to the door on trembling feet. When he reached the threshold, Mina called out one more time. High Warden. He turned. Remember this moment. Remember how helpless you felt. Remember that you lived only because I chose to let you live. Her eye glowed brighter. That is how every human on New Busan felt when your fleet arrived. The difference is that they did nothing to deserve it. Thesic fled. Behind him, Captain Lee Mina stood among the dead. Shade pressed against her leg, seeking the comfort of their bond. She rested her hand on the beast's head. Is it done? Lieutenant Commander Kim Do-hoon's voice came through her communication device. It is done, she replied. The message has been sent, and if they do not listen, Mina looked out the shattered viewport at the burning remains of the Velith fleet. 40 warships reduced to wreckage by 200 soldiers and 1 carrier. Then we will make them listen, she said. However long it takes, however many we have to kill, they will learn. She turned and walked toward the shuttle bay, her beast following behind. They will all learn. 1 week had passed since the liberation of New Busan. Governor Park Yuna stood on a hill overlooking the colony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Below her, the city was still scarred from the attack. Broken domes, burned buildings, streets marked with the memory of violence. But people were moving through those streets again. Families were returning to their homes. Children were playing in the parks. Merchants were opening their shops. Life was continuing, as it always did, even after horror. The Terran beasts had stayed to help. These soldiers who had torn through the Velith like wolves through a flock now worked side by side with colonists to clear rubble and rebuild shelters. Their war beasts, creatures that had killed hundreds of enemies, now carried supplies and guarded construction sites. It was strange to see them this way. During the battle, they had been terrifying beyond description. Yuna had seen footage of their assault, and it had given her nightmares. But now, watching Corporal Baek Junho help an elderly woman move furniture back into her home, she could almost forget what he was capable of. Almost. She found Lieutenant Commander Kim Do-hoon standing apart from the others, watching the sunset just as she was. His bear creature Thunder lay beside him, its massive body taking slow, peaceful breaths. May I join you? She asked. Do-hoon nodded without looking at her. They stood in silence for a while, watching the day end. It was a beautiful sunset, the kind that made you believe the universe could be kind. After everything they had been through, beauty seemed almost painful. You are leaving tomorrow, Yuna said finally. Yes. The Iron Dawn is repaired enough for travel. We will return to Terra and enter cryosleep again until the next call comes. Will there be a next call? Do-hoon smiled slightly. It was a sad smile, full of knowledge he could not share. There is always a next call. The galaxy is large and dark and filled with those who prey upon the weak. We have been fighting since before you were born. We will continue fighting long after you are gone. Yuna looked at him. This man, who appeared no older than 40, but had lived through centuries of war. His eyes held experience that no normal human could understand. Pain and duty, and something else, something that might have been loneliness. Can I ask you something? She said. You may ask. What are you? She paused. I mean, I know what you are called. Terran beasts. Intervention force. Monsters. But what are you really? What do you feel? What do you want? Dohun was quiet for a long time. Thunder shifted beside him, sensing his partner's thoughtfulness. I was born in a small village in the mountains, he said finally. 300 years ago. By your calendar. I had a mother who made the best soup I have ever tasted. I had a father who taught me to fish. I had a sister who used to chase me through the forests, laughing. He looked at his hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. They died in the First Contact War. An alien fleet burned my village from orbit. I was 11 years old. I hid in a cave for 3 days, listening to the screams until there were no more screams to hear. Yuna felt her heart break a little. When the recruiters found me, I wanted nothing except revenge. I wanted to kill every alien in the galaxy. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, to know what it meant, to lose everything. He smiled again, but it was a different smile now. Softer, older. The enhancements took away some of my humanity. The training took away more. By the time I became what I am now, I had forgotten why I wanted revenge. I had forgotten my mother's soup, and my father's lessons, and my sister's laugh. He touched Thunder's massive head. The beast rumbled, with pleasure. But I remembered that humans deserved to be protected. I remembered that somewhere in the galaxy, there were other children hiding in caves, waiting for someone to save them. And I decided that even if I could not be human anymore, I could still fight for humanity. Yuna wiped tears from her eyes. She had not realized she was crying. I am sorry, she said. I am sorry for what you lost, for what was taken from you. Do not be sorry. Dohun looked out at the colony, at the people rebuilding their lives. Every child I save, every family I protect, every colony I defend, I give back a little of what was taken. I cannot undo what was done to my village, but I can make sure it does not happen to others. He turned to face her fully. His eyes were not cold anymore. They were warm and sad and full of a hope that had somehow survived 3 centuries of war. That is what we are, Governor Park. We are the ones who lost everything so that others would not have to. We are the monsters who fight monsters. We are the price humanity paid to survive in a hostile universe. He gestured to the sunset, to the rebuilding colony, to the children playing in the streets below. And we are the reason all of this still exists. Yuna took his hand. It was warm and rough. A soldier's hand, a killer's hand, but also a protector's hand. Thank you, she said. For coming, for fighting, for everything. Dohun nodded. It is what we are made for. The next morning, the Terran beasts gathered at their shuttle. The colonists had come to see them off. Hundreds of people lining the streets to watch their saviors depart. Captain Lee Mina stood at the front of her soldiers. Her cybernetic eye scanned the crowd, perhaps looking for threats, perhaps simply recording the faces of those they had saved. A little girl broke from the crowd and ran toward them. Her mother called after her in alarm, but the child ignored her. She ran directly to Sergeant Cho Sunhee and wrapped her arms around the soldier's leg. Sunhee looked down in surprise. The girl was perhaps 6 years old, with messy black hair and a dirty face and eyes that were still haunted by things no child should see. Thank you for saving my mommy, the girl said. Sunhee knelt down to meet her eyes. Ghost padded over and pressed his massive head against the girl's side, gentle as a kitten. You are welcome, little one, Sunhee said. Take care of your mommy, okay? The girl nodded seriously. Then she hugged Sunhee tight before running back to her mother. Sunhee stood. And if there was moisture in her eyes? No one commented on it. The shuttle lifted off. The colonists waved and cheered. Inside the vessel, The Terran beasts watched the planet fall away below them, watching another world they had saved grow smaller and smaller, until it was just another point of light among millions. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, Do-hun stood beside Captain Lee Mina. "It was a good mission," he said. "It was a necessary mission," she replied. "There is a difference." "Is there?" Mina did not answer. She simply looked out at the stars, endless and cold and full of dangers, waiting to be faced. "Set course for Terra," she ordered. "We have done what we came to do." The ship turned toward home. In the cryo-chambers, the Terran beasts entered their pods one by one, returning to the frozen sleep that would preserve them until the next call came. And somewhere in the galaxy, the survivors of the Velith fleet spread their message. They told of humans who were not human, of beasts that wore human faces, of a force that came from nowhere and destroyed everything in its path. The galaxy listened. The galaxy learned. Humans had begged for mercy, and the Terran beasts had come. Now, the galaxy knew to be afraid. And in their frozen pods, beneath the mountains of Terra, the beasts slept, waiting for the next cry for help, because there would always be a next cry, and they would always answer.